Today, we are looking at cards that played out so much better than we initially thought they were going to.
I'm Mia, and I like the off-brand shadows best.
I'm BZ. I have a very fast metabolism, and I can basically eat whatever I want. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can basically buy whatever you want on Card Kingdom.
Use our link down below because we have recommendations for awesome cards just for you. You can buy all of your cards there. They get shipped in one awesome package right to your house. All timely, all great quality. Card Kingdom, use them right now.
We love them.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use the code
Nerds
at checkout, you can save 5% of your real money tax dollars on your entire order, which includes there are so many sleeves that are orange now. There's at least 2, and that was one more than prior because now they have amber and amethyst. You should go check them out.
Has Adam Driver been in any movies recently? Because I think Good Sleeves is such an old reference now that movie is like, what is it, like 5 years old now?
Maybe.
We got to get Adam Driver in more movies.
So go back to the club.
Moxfield, the best place online to be building decks, but this isn't the plug. It's going to be a lot later, so stay tuned and hold your horses.
And try to guess.
And Patreon. Thank you so much for funding all these shadows, funding the food, and the lights that we keep on. If you want to see more and hang out with us in our Discord, you should go use the link below and sign up.
It's a smart thing to do. So this is one of our favorite videos to make, and oftentimes we try to wait until we have like 100 games under our belt of new experiences from the previous episode of Underperformers. That's why these tend to come out every couple of months, because we actually want to get real data. We don't just want to make stuff up and say that we picked 10 random cards and say that they did so good, whatever, I thought they sucked, and now they're great. We wanted to get actual stories, actual thoughts to you guys, and so I'm really excited whenever we can do Overperformers. And honestly, we've been playing a lot more Commander this couple months versus the last couple, so maybe we'll get another episode in soon too. But these are some of our favorite things.
And I also just want to point out, with Overperformers, it's not just this was good and now it's amazing, you should put in every deck. Sometimes it's just, we thought this card would suck and it's pretty good in the right deck. Or,
yeah, we're just calling to your attention anything that drastically outperformed our initial suggestion. If we thought it was literally garbage, and like you said, it turned out to be that's worth noting, and it means maybe you play it in some decks.
Some of the more specific ones, or the ones that are just from good to great, which we have a few of those too.
Also true. This first one is really, really fun, and I guarantee you haven't even seen this card before in your entire life. It's Spectrum Sentinel. 1 mana for a 1/2 artifact creature. It has protection from multicolor, so it's a free block against a multicolor attacker. That's cool. But whenever a non-basic land an opponent controls enters, you gain 1 life. Why don't you speak to the origins of this stupid card?
I'm playing this in Mendicant Core right now. I need a lot of cheap artifacts that can hit in immediately with Mendicant Core to get that max speed started. So I put him at the lower end of the curve because he's an artifact. He's a creature who can hit in immediately.
He's got some evasion.
And he has protection from multicolored. I actually think that, I didn't think that part would be relevant in the slightest, but with all of these commanders running around that are often multicolored, it does come up if it's going to be like a Naya Voltron equipment type thing where it's like, okay, well, I guess you just can't attack me now, or at least you can, but I have protection, so it might blank some of that attack if you don't have trample and stuff. It's been more relevant than I thought, but one of the best parts about this is because it comes down immediately. You play this on turn 1, and non-basic lands start flowing in, whether that's your Spine Rock Knolls, your Terramorphic Expanses.
Fetches. Your
fetches into shocks, you know, all of that stuff. And the life really does rack up. You can see it in our game with ED Hijinks, but I do gain a fair amount of life over that time just because of the fact that this is incrementally gaining me life on most people's turns.
And that was like a 1-drop that just sort of like served your purposes anyway, and I swear to God, it felt like you gained 20 life off the stupid thing just from playing it in the first couple turns. I mean, if a 1-drop is starting to gain you 1 life that many times, I start to think, okay, this was a cool artifact for your artifact deck, but maybe this thing just gains enough life that it's now worth playing in Orzhov Life Gain. I have a black-green Life Gain deck. This is 1,000% going in there because that deck has Life Gift, which is pretty similar. It just says whenever a land enters, you gain 1. The fact that this is close enough while having some other things going on, that deck's got some sacrifice themes, I'm definitely playing this in a very high-powered black-green deck.
I think that it's very relevant with the amount of fetches and shocks going around, or just fetchable things. Maybe you fetch from your, your flooded strand into like Lush Portico or something that's already 2, or you could go like, Urza's Cave or something if you're going on the lower budget end of stuff. I feel like there are so many fetches around the landscapes and the obscura stuff that's already more ones that are coming in that really help these 2 and 3 plus color decks really flesh out their mana base and get their colors while still being non-basic lands. I feel like as things go on, even the 2 and 3 color decks are running so many non-basics. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but they're running so many basics that this will gain you a fair amount of life over time. I'd say that every single time a turn cycle goes around, 1 to 2 players will play a non-basic land.
And I still have 2 more thoughts on this. Number 1, is this enough of a threat that it is worth eating removal?
No.
Almost never. So it trusts that maybe unlike a Soul Lord, which can get out of control, this is just going to sort of be like steady and kind of silently keep you ahead of life where people might not notice, or even if they do, it's like, okay, you gain 6 off your stupid 1-drop. Like, I'm not going to devote a generous gift to that stupid thing. It's like, that's already pretty sweet. And once you stack on like life gain triggers, now we're talking.
I think that this is very relevant, especially when people are ramping. When you're going for your Sky Child claims, you're often not getting basic forest. You're usually finding, something a little bit better, something forest typed, but with extra colors or extra abilities. And this will really trigger for all of those green decks that love to ramp with non-basics.
Oh, that was my other point, is that I think the higher power you go, the more life you gain off this. I don't know if it's necessarily better, because sometimes in like bracket 4, do you have room for this? Not all the time. I think your deck has to have some kind of life gain thing, but no, it's noteworthy that as you start seeing fetches and shocks more, this gets way better and gains more life.
I've had a lot of luck with it, and I'm very surprised but happy to see it performing so well.
I can't even tell you what my initial opinion of this card was.
I didn't know it existed.
Didn't even know it was real. I would open it in a booster pack and throw it away. Like, that was my initial opinion. Now I'm like, I gotta respect this guy. I gotta give him a little respect.
He's pretty cool. Up next is Prosperous Partnership. 1 white red for an enchantment. When it enters, you create 2 1/1 green and white citizen tokens. And if you tap 3 untapped creatures you control, create a treasure token. I thought that this was initially not that great, because it's like, oh, create 2 1/1s for 3 mana. Well, the going rate for 2 1/1s is usually 2 mana. And I wasn't really sure about the treasure token thing, but this has actually been pretty okay, especially because it refunds you 2/3 of the treasure immediately. So if you have an extra creature lying around, and you could do this at instant speed too, so you can hold it up, you can just make a treasure on end step, and if you can make any more creatures with things like Secure the Waste or whatever, you can funnel that into more creatures to turn into more treasures.
Yeah, when you play this, you're going to have one other creature. That's just sort of a checklist you should check off before even playing this, so that this actually says make 2 1/1s and at least 1 treasure. And like you said, every additional creature you add to the board, now you have to do treasure math. Oh, I can just not attack with this and then make 2 extra treasures because of the Secure the Waste. So that's super strong, and this card capitalizes on one of my favorite types of game, which is just the board stall. No one's attacking because everybody's got stupid chump blockers, and you go, all right, yeah, pass. Make 4 treasures on end step. Even if they kill Prosperous Partnership, you still got a bunch of mana. You're ahead on mana. They had to spend a bunch just to get rid of part of your card. You still have the 2 1/1s in play, and you're just kind of cruising.
I've seen this do a lot of work. I just didn't think that it was that good, because I was like, oh, token decks, you're going to go so fast that you don't need this extra mana. But it's nice in those board stalls, which I think happen pretty often, whether you're waiting for, your Crater Hoof to run everyone over, or you're just, there's a bunch of 4/4s on the field and you're just waiting and you can't swing into them. Gaining that mana and just letting it ramp up and just sitting there going, okay, I'll bide my time until I can just fire something gigantic off with all of these treasures, really helps the game swing in your favor.
Yeah, my initial opinion of this card, like most cards from Streets of New Capenna Commander,
you forgot existed?
My eyes just sort of glazed over, and I just saw it as like another, here's a good example. I thought it was replaceable. And I think it's actually closer to the premium category. There's not a lot of stuff like this. I love that it spots you the board state to where you don't, like, some versions of this card, that are similar-ish, they might just be the enchantment. It's like, okay, well, then I have to be at parity or winning or something. This gives you, like, most of what you need to get started and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think that this is very good in the 3 mana slot. I feel like in 3 mana there are a lot of choices, but this is not a bad one because it gives you that little bit of extra power and the extra mana. It'll like refund you to get you back to that like 2 mana for 2 1/1 type rate that I was talking about.
Yeah, it's good early and it's good late, and I think this card also has weird corner case combos. If you have something like a Jaheira that is replacing the tokens you make, and you start making double the amount of tokens, then you can go like tap 3 tokens to make 4 tokens, and then you just keep going. That could be really sweet. I love that. I also just like it with token doubles in general, because now you make 4 1/1s and you tap 3 to make 2 treasures. That math is silly. You're going to win the game.
I think it's pretty solid. Up next is a card that BZ's been very happy about. What is it?
For like the better part of a year, this thing has just been consistently kicking everyone's butt. It's Rose, Cutthroat Raider, 2 red for a 3/2 first strike. Raid. At the end of combat on your turn, if you attack this turn, create a junk token for each opponent you attacked. I know you don't remember what a junk token is. Nobody does. It's an artifact with tap. Sacrifice this token. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So like a weird impulse draw clue that doesn't cost any mana to crack. But the last line, whenever you sacrifice a junk, you get a red. So now they're like a treasure, but they draw you a card. This can make up to 3 per combat. If you take extra combats, that's cool. But the baseline is you send creatures at opponents. This has first strike, probably easy to get in the early game with this by itself to on one person. 3 junks, which is basically like Jessica's Will now. That's dramatic, but it's close.
It's very real of a threat, especially when you have all these little disposable 1/1s. They don't have to have death touch or anything. They just need to attack each of your opponents. And then being able to just go, okay, 3 junks, sack them 3 reds and getting 3 cards out of it. And if you don't do anything in your first main phase to begin with, it is very real, that mana and card advantage that you have. You can cycle away things that you really didn't need, or just deploy your biggest threats with 3 extra mana under your belt. This is awesome.
It's so good that it says at the end of combat. If you gloss over it, you might assume end of turn, and then you can't use the junks until next turn because they're sorcery speed. But no, if you just play Rose and have a couple lands left over, get 3 junks, you basically can just take another couple spells, couple game actions, these are really good for hitting your land drops. I have been so happy with this. The one area where I would say Rose is like not great is if you have a lot of creatures that are entering, tapped, and attacking, like Myriad or Mobilize. Rose doesn't see them. So if I attack with Voice of Victory on one player and send the other 2 Mobilize tokens at the other 2 players, Rose only sees that I actually attacked one person, so I get 1 junk. But as long as you're getting 1 junk, I feel like you're winning with this card. I feel like you're up.
If you can declare all of your attackers at everyone and then just get a bunch of extra mana and card advantage, that's just really where we want to be with this. And I like the fact that Rose is also an artifact. If you have any artifact reduction, the Enthusiastic Mechanauts or the Ethereum Sculptors or whatever in your deck, you can get her down to just 2 mana.
Yeah, at first I did not respect this card initially because it blended in with all the other junk cards, and they were just so like overcosted, where it's like, oh, I have to like discard a card to squad something and then maybe I get a junk later. They just were not appealing, and this one blended in until honestly maybe like 8 months ago. It's been a while. We've been high on Rose for a minute, but I'm happy to finally include it on Overperformers because it's just provided so much value.
Yeah, I feel like with UB there are so many cards that usually come out per set. It's hard to filter out the best ones out of it until you play with a bunch of it. So I'm happy we get to wait and check out and just really talk about the best cards that we've witnessed. Rose has been so good in all of the decks that I've seen it in.
Yeah, definitely get it in your low to the ground red aggro decks. Mono red, I think this loves this no matter what you're doing.
Red plus artifacts.
Anything artifacts, the Rose has a lot of homes, so definitely start considering it. Next is an older card. We don't talk about older cards that often because usually we already had initial opinions of older cards, and if they would have overperformed, we would have told you by now. But this one, Croson Restore, 2 and a green for a 1/2. It taps to untap target land, and if you have Threshold, which is 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can tap it to untap up to 3 target lands. That turns out this card's pretty sick, and I think I've had it in a deck for a while, but when we go over are there any cards that are overperforming? I go, wait, this one was a speculative add into my Svella deck that cares about tapping and untapping things, lands specifically. And it just, every time I have it, it's one of my best cards.
I feel like there are a few things that are really good about this. One being, it's very easy to get 7 or more cards in your graveyard, even if you're not playing dedicated mill or self-mill or graveyard shenanigans. It's not that hard to get them in there as the game progresses. Another is that I thought this card would not be that great because 2 and a green, untapped target land. I mean, we're looking at untapped target forest with Arbor Elf for a single green.
Voyaging Satyr is just this exact card minus the threshold for 1 cheaper.
Yeah, so I was very hesitant about that mana cost when this first came out. And the fact that it is very budget. I was going to be like, if no one's playing, I thought it would be a little more expensive if it was that good. But this untapping up to 3 lands has been so relevant in so many of the games that we've played, whether that be lands that make more than 1 mana, the Utopia Sprawl
Gruul
enchanted
Turf.
lands, the Gruul Turfs of the world, or their activate ability lands. If you can find this in somewhere that has, makes a ton of mana, maybe if you throw in a Nykthos or type thing, you can make so much mana out of that. And then untap up to 3 lands, that could be 5+ worth of mana if you have the right lands, or maybe you're drawing cards with like War Room or something like that. It's pretty relevant.
Yeah, don't play this card alone and just expect it to win you the game, but alongside cards that we play all the time, like Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth, and I think you can even go as far as Wolf Willow Haven and Fertile Ground. Overgrowth, I've also been pretty happy with Overgrowth. All that stuff kind of combines pretty well with Corrosive Restore. Sorceries, instants, fetch lands are primarily how you're going to get stuff in your grave, but there are plenty of playable cards like Malevolent Rumble. You just throw in a green deck, and that's like over half of Threshold by itself. Corrosive Restore even honestly has some level of like combo potential. I discovered this accidentally in my deck, but there's Seeker of Skybreak, which taps to untap a creature. Cool. You can maybe untap itself or Corrosive Restore. But when you pair that with Rings of Brighthearth, and now we're talking about Threshold, you can tap the Corrosive Restore to untap 3 lands, which could maybe make 5 mana worth of things. And then you copy it with the Rings, double that. Seeker of Skybreak can untap itself, and the Corrosive Restore, you're now at infinite mana, infinite colors, infinite whatevers.
You could also do that with things like Ashaya too, when you're just making everything forests. You could be untapping target lands, which includes itself.
That is basically just infinite. That's a 2 card, right?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, so Corrosive Restore, even though I have been playing it in more of a budget scenario environment, it's got some legs in the higher power.
I mean, Ashaya is also a little bit more budget than it used to be. It was reprinted in a precon a little while ago.
It's less than 10.
Yeah, so it's not 100% a budget card, but it is more budget than it was 2 years ago.
Now I'm going to have to question to see if I want to play that, because that's pretty nasty. I like that a lot. Corrosive Restore, way more upside than it looks like.
We have a creature that's a pseudo board wipe up next. It's Massacre Worm, 3 black for a 6/5. When he enters, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. I feel like Beezy was the one who didn't respect this card as much, because I had it in Yarok for a hot minute.
Oh, yeah.
And that doubles ETB triggers, so because of Massacre Worm, everything got -4/-4, and everything would just die instantly. But I've been seeing you play it in Marchesa lately, and it's been pretty good.
I think there's a reason for why I was lower on Massacre Worm, but I've sort of like grown more fond of it as we go, even though the card's the same. I feel like Commander, there might just be more like little doofuses running around.
I'll agree with that.
I think it's just easier to make like 13 guys pass the turn and, present a win next turn. And Massacre Worm helps stop a lot of that stuff. I know Scoot Swarm it's not like the factor, but it's an example of like how easy it is to just set one thing down and end up with 20 tokens. Massacre Worm does punish that a little bit. It's not a pseudo board wipe. I probably wouldn't call it that. I think it's just a way to punish dorks and thin the herd and get you like, it can recover you from a losing board state.
I don't know. I would call it a pseudo board wipe just because, one, there are so many dorks running around. Two, for calling, Meat Hook Massacre a pseudo board wipe, because you could play it for like 1 or 2 or something and you can wipe it.
I would call that pseudo because it actually, you could get better than 2.
I feel like with Massacre Worm, you are able to wipe a lot of the very important things off the board, whether that's all the little Scoot Swarm tokens, whether you're getting rid of like the Dothy Voidwalkers of the world and all of that.
Please.
And there's so many important things in like Commander value pieces that are less than 2 health or 2 health exactly, and I feel like this wipes a lot of them. Gone are the days that we were paying from under the floorboards to make all these tokens. We can do that for so much cheaper now, and Massacre Worm is going to punish that.
You guys remember when all we could play was from under the floorboards? What possessed you to have that as the prime example of like making? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I just remembered that was one of the most iconic pre-con cards that I thought of from under the floorboards.
You guys remember 2016, the under the floorboards meta?
I think it was in like my Edgar pre-con or something like that. It was in one of the pre-cons, and like looking back, I realized it was not supposed to be in there.
So if you're trying to answer under the floorboards or Grave Titan or Field of the Dead or Scoot Swarm, Massacre Worm I think is more appealing than it was 10 years ago, and I'm happy for that. Next up, we get to talk about a card that I have had just sort of quietly be this workhorse and finally started to become aware of it. It's Psychic Frog, blue-black for a 1/2. When this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, draw a card, and you can discard a card to put a +1/+1 counter on it, and you could exile 3 cards from your graveyard to have it gain flying until end of turn. I'll start by saying this is a specific card. If you can't get value out of discard a card, then maybe you don't want this card, but it's way more stats than it looks like. The free discard outlet plus this being able to be threatening, like to just be like a 7/8 or a 4/5 when it's a little bit smaller than that, always constantly blanking flying attackers coming at you because you can go, are you sure? I'm going to exile 3 cards and give it flying, or just go, okay, that attack is fine. Exile 3 cards, give it flying, screw you. That's super cool. It just feels like it does a little bit of everything, and it gets so big that nobody can block it, especially if you give it flying, and then you're actually drawing cards off it. I wrote this off as good, maybe even busted, but not for our format.
Yeah, I think that with Psychic Frog, I was looking at it as blue-black, 1/2, free discard outlet. Very cool. That is already kind of what we want, because there are so many 1 in a blue draw then discard to fill things, but you have to tap it, and there are so many things that you can put into that little bracket of having to tap, getting 1 per turn, and we still think that's pretty good for that mana cost. This is unlimited discards. It gets gigantic by accident. Yeah. It's not even, it could have just said discard a card and then just said you discarded a card because of it, and I would have gone, that's pretty cool, because that's a free discard outlet and we love to have those. But with how big this has gotten, I feel like getting those cards off of it it's so easy to replace itself because of the fact that it's so much bigger than everyone really thinks. And then it can blank attacks from some of the beefiest flyers around. I've seen you get this thing up to 8/8, 9/9, or 8/9, 9/10, etc. This has killed people on its own. It's a measly little 2-drop.
Yeah, I have it in my Oscar deck, and that is a deck that probably takes a better advantage of this more than most decks, because it says every time you discard anything, you could theoretically cast it at instant speed. That's cool, but if you have any other stuff like Madness, if you care about filling your graveyard, Monument to Endurance is disgusting.
Ooh, that's a good card.
You just rip through all 3 modes every single turn, getting 1 card back every time, making mana. Maybe you can cast other spells with Madness so you get more recuperating your value. Ooh, Psychic Frog, it's a little workhorse, considering that it's just a 2-mana creature that you never have to pay any more mana into ever, and it does like 6 things. I also think that while it's not you shouldn't be living in Magical Christmas Land, but there are games where you just play this turn 2, and it's important to know that when that happens, you're actually going to draw a card every single turn off of it, unless they straight up kill it.
Yeah, I feel like this has survived so many things because there are so many ways to make it better. If you don't have anything that says straight up exile or discard, if you're paying like the Toxic Deluges of the world, like you have 5 cards in hand.
How much do you want to pay?
Yeah, how much are you going to pay? Are you going to pay 15 life for this because I have 6 cards in hand? It's an 8/9 because I've been discarding cards like throughout the entire game.
Yeah, you don't know what I have.
Yeah, so I think it gets so disgusting very quickly, especially for a 2-drop. I definitely underestimated this for Commander because we saw it do so much work in 60-card formats.
And I think when I look at this, at first, I read the first line as the most important, and I kind of just went, okay, well, there's like a million versions of that. Why would I play this over the other ones? I don't really play most of the when they hit draw a card unless it has something else. And when you're playing the Madness deck or the discard deck or the graveyard deck, you get that something else.
The next card is a creature that I didn't know it went in as many decks as I've been putting it in, but it's been working really well. It's Threefold Thunderhulk. 7 mana for a 0/0, but don't worry, this creature enters with 3/1/1 counters on it. When it enters or attacks, create a number of 1/1 gnomes equal to its power. If you pay 2, sack another artifact, you put a 1/1 counter on this creature. This 7 mana for a 3/3, not the best rate, obviously, but when it comes in with 3 1/1s already, or you can find any way to when it enters with additional counters.
Yeah.
You have anthems in your deck, whatever. These gnomes will be gigantic. And if you can give it haste or anything like that, when it attacks, you're going to be making even more. It's just going to snowball into an army in a can.
I have had no choice but to respect this card. I put it in as a meme, went, oh, wait, like, this is winning me games. Then it's like started to spread like a virus through our decks because it's so... I think it's a very like universal card. You can play it in a lot of stuff. +1/+1 counters, big beefy like attacks decks, big mana stuff, artifacts. There's like a lot of tokens even. There's a lot of ways to go. To me, this card has like completely replaced Mere Battlesphere. I don't play that card at all anymore. I'm way more excited to play Threefold. There's just so many opportunities for this card to be cracked when it already starts out pretty good. Like you said, even if you just have an Anthem that gives all your creatures +1/+1, this 7 mana for a 4/4 and 3 2/2s And if you can start giving it haste, or sorry, 4 2/2s and a 4/4, and then I think this goes really, really ridiculous with haste.
I mean, it's so real because it's colorless and it can go into all these decks. I have to replace Mirror Battlesphere and Perforos with this card because it just has so much more opportunity to make things. But if you care about artifacts dying or entering, the ingenious artillerists of the world, the marionette apprentices of the world, you can stick this in here, and that is already 4 triggers of ETB or dying just from it entering the battlefield. And then if you can get it to attack, it's going to be more and more. I don't even use the other mode that often. Like I never sack to put a 1/1 counter on here, but I like the fact that you can if necessary.
I had it come up for the first time and it won me a game.
Really?
Because we were playing and I had 1,000 mana and I had like nothing to do. I top deck it. I go, oh, play it, sack a bunch of stuff to it with the trigger on the stack, make it bigger, and then I make more gnomes off that initial thing. That's not going to come up that often, but it is good to know you can respond to that trigger and do other stuff.
Threefold Thunderhulk, I often find in decks alongside, at least the way I'm playing it, I find it alongside, what's it called? The one that also makes gnomes, the one that you always exile on my side.
Illustrious Wanderglyph.
Yes, it is very good in there because if you can play these two at the same time, one, they're both artifacts. If you can reduce any sort of artifacts, you will get the reduction for both of them. Another one is that Illustrious Wanderglyph gives +2/+2 if you've ascended to every single artifact creature that's not itself, which makes all of the 1/1s that you make 3/3s.
And it gives you 2 extra because it'll be a 5/5 when it enters.
Yeah, and then that is just plus this and plus that, all army in a can together. Those 2 cards together will make a board state that will basically just kill your opponents almost immediately.
So there's 2 cards I want to really try this with now. I want to get it with Frostcliff Siege, +1/+0, trample, haste, everything. Means you get a 4/4 and 4 2/1s that all come in attack, attack the turn you play them, which gives you 4 more 2/1s on defense. That sounds amazing, but also Cathar's Crusade seems pretty sick.
I think that it's so good, whether you're putting this in a token deck or you're putting this in a counter deck or wherever, it's very versatile. And this card has been serving me very well.
Where it comes up a lot with us is budget, too. If we're building on a budget, this feels like a great top end. That's, I think, where we play it primarily, but I'm sure this has plenty of applications when you start getting haste enablers outside of budget.
Yeah, no, I'm playing this in non-budget decks. Like, basically only not budget decks. I'm playing it in Mendicant Core, and I'm playing it in Perforos.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm the one who tends to play it more in budget then, but it still
yeah,
has
but I mean, I just we like dirtly little artifacts, and I like making tokens, and he likes dirtly little artifacts, and I feel like these are very good in both of those.
Just a happy marriage of the two things. Next is what I'm calling the upgrade to Sun Titan, because I have been pretty disappointed with Sun Titan costing 6 mana. It's bummed me out a little bit. I used to love that guy, but I'm going to be playing Redemption Choir over a Sun Titan every day of the week. It's 2 white for a 3/3 lifelink. Coven, when this creature enters or attacks, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, if you have Coven, which is this plus 2 other creatures with different powers than 3, it is just better. I'm just saving mana on Sun Titan. I'm feeling amazing about it. I can still get back lands. All the same crap that Sun Titan does, this does. And I've found that because I really love getting on board early, it's just the same thing but better.
It's just a lot faster, and I feel like there are so many things. It's so easy to be able to get this out. You play like a 1/1 on turn 1. Maybe you play your Ornithopter of Paradise turn 2,
Ooh.
and then turn 3 you slap this down, and you can get something.
Land.
Yeah, get back whatever you really have in the graveyard if you have anything at that point. It's a lot of value, and I think that with this card, especially since it does have lifelink, if you need to attack or keep it on defense, you'll be able to gain a little bit of life if that's really in a pinch. But if you just put it out early enough, you can just start stacking up all of these things back to the battlefield.
Yeah, a 4-drop that starts getting back 3-drops is pretty sweet. You can do things like getting back a 3-drop that flickers this. There's probably combos involved with it, because anything that loops with Fiend Hunter, I'm thinking is probably like the start of some infinite that's going to kill people. That's nice to have as the critical mass feature of your random value 4-drop. I think that this will have less free attacks than Sun Titan, but once you play it and attack with it, it's like, how much more could you possibly want out of your Magic the Gathering card that costs 4 mana?
Yeah, I feel like there's always someone around who will not block this because it's a 3/3, and there's always going to be someone with like the 4/4 or whatever, but there's always going to be someone with a few tokens, and they'll either chump block it so this thing won't die, or they don't want to give up 3 of their tokens to just block and kill your thing.
We keep joking that blocking's not real in
blocking
Commander.
Is so not real. There are so many little chump blockers around, and those are fine, those are born to die little tokens or whatever. But this is on attack. This isn't on combat damage, so it's fine. You send it at them. They're like, I'm not going to block with my 1/1. I'm not going to block with my Llanowar Elves. I need that next turn. So they don't. They take the damage, and then you're going to get your thing back. It's going to be fine.
I think this card would be worse if it was a 2/2 or something. I think it's much more plausible to have a 1/1 and a 2/2 out, or a 0/1 and a 1/1 to trigger the Coven. Definitely have to play this alongside fetch lands. It loses a ton of value if you don't, because it's this early drop that's going to, I like to ramp with white reanimation more so than the white catch-up stuff. I'd rather go Savine's Wreck, Redemption Choir, even Brought Back, I think is pretty cool to get back all my fetch lands and just keep fetching. I love that stuff. This is right in my wheelhouse. I love getting on board early.
I mean, there's also the Abzan self-mill graveyard. Put this in your Carador deck.
Me? Would I ever do that?
There's a couple Carador decks that this might go in,
There are.
if I can think of them.
There sure could be.
The next one is a card that has been way more relevant than I thought it would be. It's Stone of Eric. 1 mana for an artifact. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So it's very good against most of Beezy's decks.
All of them.
2, tap, sack it, exile target player's graveyard, usually Beezy's, draw a card. This is an early turn play that really impacts how people are playing the game. It's not as good as the ones where it's like, if it would go to the graveyard, you exile it instead. But there are so many creatures that, will come in and be sacrificed or whatever that will really slow down the strategies almost instantly.
I haven't seen this in a game where it doesn't brutally impact 2 players immediately, at least. We're talking about a card that is a 1 mana investment, has obvious synergy with the most obvious deck for it, the Artifacts deck. If you play this in a cantrips on cast, or it costs 0, or it counts for affinity, you are getting serious advantage out of a huge roadblock. I know plenty of decks cannot win with this card in play. Anything that's trying to loop, anything that's trying to mass reanimate, anything that's saving up for one big turn probably gets stopped by this. If you're in the mid to late game and you can afford to, holding up the mana is extra dastardly, because now they're like, I'm going to waste a card to kill it. You go, I'm going to draw a card and get a full other effect out of this card that just, I spent 3 mana on it, drew a card, and wrecked your whole life for 5 turns. It is very, very strong for 1. And don't go back and watch the Lord of the Rings top 10. It's one of the most embarrassing videos Joe or I have ever put out, or maybe ever will put out. It was a terrible list. This should have been on there, among other things. I'm just rectifying that now. Didn't give this enough attention. It's fantastic.
Should this have been number 1 on that video?
No, actually.
What should have?
I don't remember.
Stone of Eric is very, very good. I think that there are so many opportunities, even if it's not in the sacrifice decks. There are a few that I'm playing, like Foundation Breaker and these Evoke Triggers, the Mole Drifters, and sometimes you want to bring them back, and making them get exiled instead is just a lot of value that is lost, whether that be the value of, I was trying to bring that back from the graveyard to do it again, but it evoked and it got exiled, or it's even just that one less card to exile or to delve away with, like Dig Through Time or Treasure Cruise and all that. It really does add up over the long run. This has been so good for a turn 1 or just a 1 mana investment.
It fits into your curve very easily, and it's very disruptive for 1 mana. I get frustrated with this one a little bit, so I just go, what am I supposed to do? I have to waste a card and kill it, and then I lose my graveyard, but if I don't kill it, I'm just going to lose my graveyard later.
Have you considered just playing decks that are graveyard decks? I'm just curious. That
doesn't sound like that makes any sense for me. I can't do that. But Stone of Eric, unlike the rest of the cards where I'm like, if you're playing tokens, if you're playing discard, I would challenge, because I think everybody does not play enough Graveyard Hate and Commander.
Hard agree.
I would challenge every single person watching this to add Stone of Eric into at least one. I'll take one. Add it into one of your decks and watch how everybody else squirms from it. It's one-sided. It's never going to hurt you. It's here to help you, and it's here to make everyone else miserable.
People do scramble, and I think that with the 1 mana artifacts, whether that be Soul Guide Lantern, Stone of Eric, etc., they're just not playing them enough. I do hard agree that people who do not play enough Graveyard Hate and people like you get away with way too much.
I think people are on to Soul Guide Lantern, but this needs to be it's up there with Soul Guide Lantern.
I don't think people play Soul Guide Lantern enough either, though.
That's fair.
And especially Stone of Eric, I also don't think that they play this enough. It out. Maybe make someone sweat.
You will like it. I'm not going to say you might like it. You just will. Just like Moxfield.com. The best way to build decks. You thought it wasn't coming? What are you, crazy? We are always sponsored by Moxfield. We always love them, and we always want to recommend the best deck building website to you because we want you to build better decks, and it's easier to do that when you can see everything, and there's not a million thousand ads in your face, and you can actually scroll and organize everything.
Moxfield, the best place online to be sharing your decks with QR codes, whether that be Shadow but Sweaty or Shadow but Casual. Chris, put those on my hands, please.
Truly a choose your own destiny. So the next card comes with a little bit of story time, but I'm going to go ahead and read Roxanne Starfall Savant first. 3 red green for a 4/3. When she enters or attacks, create a tapped colorless artifact token named Meteorite. With, when this token enters, it deals 2 damage to any target, and tap, add 1 mana of any color. Whenever you tap an artifact token for mana, add 1 mana of any type that token produced. So this originates from Thunder Junction.
Yes, there's so many stories you could tell with this card. I didn't know which one you were going to tell.
And we know this is a great commander. This was in the top half of our Thunder Junction commanders.
It was 8 or 9.
When we were scripting that, we misread Roxanne. During the video, we had already recorded the first 25 commanders. And we were like, okay, wait, what does this do? And then I remember saying, Chris can back me up on this. I was like, this card sucks. Oh no, we've already recorded everything. Well, let's just say it's good, and we'll hype ourselves up in the moment. And then we ended up actually liking it. And we were like, wait, maybe we rated this correctly as we were talking about it. Well, that worked itself out. And then after playing with it in the 99, we were like, this is one of the best cards in Thunder Junction.
Yeah, we did not successfully hype ourselves up enough for this card, I think. But I think that
we still underrated it.
We still underrated it. I think it should have been higher on that list. But Roxanne, as a commander, is way better than I thought she'd be. But even in the 99, here's another story time that I thought Beezy was actually going to tell.
We have too many.
Beezy and I recently were playing in MagicCon Vegas. Thank you all for the people who went to come play with us. We had some very fun games, and this was one of them. Roxanne was my commander. Awesome deck. And Beezy in Brutaclad copied Roxanne. And it was very nasty.
This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Why can't this card be colorless?
Yeah, I wish this card could be so I could put it in Brutaclad.
Seriously, this card I think goes in way more of the 99. I threw it in my Svella deck, and it's one of the best cards in that deck.
I think Chris has it in Jaheira,
Decks that
red,
make
green
treasures.
Jaheira.
Yeah, this card, it looks like a commander, and it is great in that niche, but it's really solid just as a random thing. Even if you just play it in like a budget deck, if you just throw down this thing, it snipes a utility creature, it makes a permanent mana source. It's just going to keep doing that if they don't answer it. Roxanne is such a pushed Magic card. It was broken and limited. It's a really, really good commander that demands some kind of like collaboration on the table because it ramps so out of control that you can't even interact with it with regular removal most of the time. And it's just a great 99 card. It's one of those cards that gets cloned a lot and like everyone wants a piece.
I alluded to this in a separate video, but those meteorites are also some of the things that get copied the most. Meteorites only come in tapped because Roxanne says they come in tapped. If you copy a meteorite, it comes in untapped. You can use it immediately for 2 mana because of Roxanne being on the field. And then you can also just snipe something.
Still does the damage.
Yeah, so if Roxanne making the meteorite, even if you can make a few of those and then, copy them, and even if Roxanne leaves, they'll still come in untapped and you'll still be getting these mana rocks that hurt people. I think it is awesome.
Please consider Roxanne in more of your 99s, especially those red-green treasure adjacent decks. And please consider watching the cards that we'd recommend you buy this month so you stay up to date.